I never expected the conference room to feel this cold, but maybe that was just the shock settling inside me as the auditors slid the folder across the table. My name, printed in crisp black letters under the section titled, Authorized Financial Signatories. I remember staring at it as if it were someone else's identity, someone braver, someone with a seat at the table. But it was mine. And the way the audit lead looked at me, waiting for clarification, made my stomach tighten. "Ms. Hale, can you walk us through these transfers?" he asked gently, the kind of gentle that meant danger. My hands stayed still on the table, fingers locked. Outside this room, I was just the broken turn who fetched lattes and carried boxes. Inside, I was a name on accounts worth millions. And all I could think was, they're finally going to know. The moment the question left his mouth, 1,000 memories crashed back. The laughter, the whispered comments, the way the marketing team joked about my intern-sized brain while handing me their trash. I inhaled, steady but trembling, and somehow the words came out. I can explain everything. But I wasn't ready to. Not yet. Because to explain this, I had to go back to the beginning, the day I walked into this building with a second-hand laptop, scuffed shoes, and absolutely no idea that the founder had plans for me no one else could see. The truth wasn't born in this glass room. It started months earlier, on a humid June morning when I stepped into Holden and Bright for the first time, coffee-stained resume in hand, pretending I wasn't terrified. That was the day my invisibility began, long before I learned how powerful it could become. I remember my first hour like it's still happening. The office smelled like citrus cleaner and burnt espresso, the kind that no amount of corporate money can mask. The receptionist, Liza, didn't look up when I introduced myself. She just pointed vaguely at a stack of badges, mumbling, "Take whichever. Interns don't need clearance." I picked one without arguing. I didn't know you were supposed to push back, negotiate, claim your space. I was 24 and broke, and I needed this internship so desperately that I swallowed the comment whole. In the elevator, 3 senior analysts stepped in behind me mid-conversation. They didn't pause when they saw me, they didn't even see me. "The new round of interns look extra fragile this year," one said. "HR should have added resilience training to onboarding." The others laughed, and I stared straight ahead, watching my reflection blur in the steel doors. If anyone had asked why my jaw clenched, I would have said it was nerves. But now, looking back, I know it was the beginning of something else. Something sharp. Something I didn't have a name for yet. My assigned desk was wedged between the supply closet and a dying ficus tree, as if they intentionally wanted the intern to merge with forgotten furniture. The computer took 7 minutes to turn on. The chair wobbled. But what I noticed most was the whiteboard across the room, tidy handwriting, layers of strategy notes, arrows connecting ideas like constellations. That was the founder's handwriting. Edwin Holden. People spoke of him in a mythic tone, like he'd built the company out of thin air using only caffeine and charisma. I'd never met him. I assumed I never would. I was wrong. The first time he approached my corner of the office, no one noticed. He just appeared beside the ficus like he'd grown there. I remember jumping because he said, "You must be Tessa Hale," and I wasn't sure how he knew my name. When a company has 100 employees, founders don't memorize the interns. They certainly don't learn their full names. I stood so fast my knee hit the desk. "Sir, yes, I'm Tessa," I stammered. He smiled, not the corporate kind, but the kind that cracked a little, like he found the world overwhelming too. "Don't let them bury you in this corner. It'll kill your creativity." I laughed awkwardly, assuming he was joking. I didn't know he meant it literally. Later that week, I discovered how invisible I truly was. During a meeting I wasn't even supposed to attend, the operations team needed printed agendas. Liza shoved the stack at me and whispered, "Just hand these out quickly. Stay quiet." I did what she said. I always did what people said in those days. As I moved around the conference table, I heard the jokes. "The intern's shaking," one analyst whispered loudly. "Maybe she's never seen adults before." Another chimed in, "Or maybe she can't read the room." Their laughter was soft but sharp, like paper cuts. I kept my face numb. People underestimate how strong numbness can be when it protects you. At the end of the meeting, I was gathering cups when Edwin walked in. He froze when he saw me cleaning. Then he scanned the room, the mess they'd left behind. The way I blended into the background like part of the furniture. Something tightened in his expression. I asked you to observe this meeting, not to serve it, he said quietly. The room went still. I felt every pair of eyes snap toward us. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My throat locked. One of the analysts smirked. Ed, she just looked lost, so we figured. You figured wrong, Edwin cut in, voice calm but laced with steel. Tessa stays. All of you can go. The team shuffled out, annoyed but silent. The door clicked shut, and I exhaled shakily. I'm sorry if I messed anything up, I said. You didn't, he replied. They did. Then he gathered the scattered papers, straightened the chairs, and handed me a fresh notebook. From now on, sit at the table. I wish I could say that moment changed everything. It didn't. Not right away. In fact, the backlash made things worse. People whispered that I was Edwin's charity case. Someone left a sticky note on my desk that read teacher's pet. Another left a half-broken pen that said intern material. But something inside me shifted anyway. That day, for the first time, I realized I didn't have to stay in the shadows. I could choose where I stood. And it turned out Edwin wasn't done choosing for me either. A month later, he called me into his office, a room so clean it felt untouched, except for the stacks of meticulously organized documents. He gestured for me to sit. I perched on the edge of the chair like it might bite. Tessa, he began, I've been reviewing the interns this cycle. You're different. I tensed, expecting a polite rejection, a soft dismissal, a different that meant not enough. He continued, you see the problems no one else notices. You ask questions most people are afraid to ask. I'm not sure everyone agrees with that, I said carefully. That's because they're not looking. He pushed a folder toward me. I want you to assist me on a few internal projects. Strictly confidential. I blinked. Me? Yes. He gave a small, tired smile. Sometimes the best person to trust is the one no one else bothers to see. I didn't understand then what he meant. But I would. Soon. Over the next few weeks, I met with him regularly. Early mornings. Late afternoons. He walked me through budgets, contract obligations, vendor logs, things interns never touched. He'd watch me work, silent but thoughtful, occasionally nodding when I pointed out a miscalculation or a missing receipt. Good eye, he'd murmur. Very few people catch that. I floated every time he said it. Praise wasn't something I was used to. To everyone else, I was still the broken intern who microwaved dollar store soup for lunch. But Edwin saw something else, though I didn't know why. Not yet. Then came the day that changed everything. He called me in with a seriousness I'd never seen on him before. He closed the door. Locked it. Tessa, he said softly, I'm naming you secondary signatory on a few projects. My heart stopped. Sir, that doesn't make sense. I'm an intern. I'm temporary. For now, he said. But I trust you more than people who've been here for years. But why me? I whispered. His expression darkened, something haunted flickering in his eyes. Because this company is about to face something big. And when it does, I need someone who sees the truth. I didn't understand the weight of it then. But I signed the papers. My hand shook the whole time. Months later, the founder was gone. Vanished without explanation. Rumors circled, burnout, illness, investors pushing him out, but no one really knew. The internal chaos grew louder. Financial discrepancies appeared. People were scrambling. And then today, the audit. And now I sit in this freezing room, staring at my own name printed in black ink. The broke intern. The nobody. The invisible girl. The one he trusted. Ms. Hale, the auditor repeats, pulling me back to the present. We need you to walk us through everything. I inhale, the air sharp in my lungs. This is the moment everything turns. Because they finally see me. The auditor's voice fades into a low hum as I sit there, the fluorescent lights buzzing above us, vibrating against the tension in my chest. Part of me wants to sink into the chair and disappear, like the intern they carved me to be. But another part, the part Edwin awakened without meaning to, keeps me upright. They're watching me now, all of them, the audit team, the CFO sitting stone-faced across the table, and the operations director who used to call me coffee girl under his breath. They want answers. No, What they really want is someone to blame. Someone small. Someone convenient. And for months, that was me. But not anymore. I straighten the folder in front of me with a slow, steady hand. I can tell you everything, I say, feeling the tremor in my voice settle into something firmer. But I need to start with the week before Mr. Holden left. The CFO, a broad-shouldered man named Rylan Keene, shifts in his chair. He's the kind of person who hides power behind politeness, the kind whose neutral expression feels like a wall you can't climb. Ms. Hale, he says carefully, we're interested only in the transactions you signed. I meet his eyes. Yes. And those transactions were assigned to me by the founder. I kept records. You'll want the full context. The audit lead looks at me, then at Rylan. It's subtle, but I see it, the curiosity forming. They didn't expect me to have a spine. They didn't expect me to have documents. They definitely didn't expect me to have the confidence to challenge the CFO. That gives me strength. A quiet one. The kind that feels like finally stepping onto a stage you've rehearsed for alone in an empty room. Rylan crosses his arms. Proceed, he says. And suddenly I'm back in the memory so vividly that the conference room dissolves around me. The week before Edwin disappeared was suffocating, thick, heavy, as if the air itself was waiting for a storm. People whispered in corners about a funding leak. A contractor filed a complaint. A client demanded explanations for late deliverables. Everything in the office felt loose, like one wrong touch could make the whole building collapse. And through all of it, no one talked to me. They never talked to the intern. Which is why it struck me as strange when the finance manager, Calla Hart, approached my desk that Monday morning with a smile too sweet to be real. Calla was polished in the way people practiced in mirrors, perfectly straight posture, hair always pinned, voice always soft like velvet coated her words. She had never spoken directly to me before. Tessa, right? She asked, leaning against my desk. Yes, I said slowly. I heard you're assisting with some of Edwin's internal projects. Wonderful. Could you do me a quick favor? Just sign off on a routine vendor confirmation for me. Edwin must have mentioned it. She slid a single sheet toward me. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. I scanned the page. Numbers, contract codes, vendor ID, authorized approver line left blank. I recognized the vendor, Claremont Solutions. They'd been flagged twice in the logs Edwin made me review. He didn't mention this, I said. Her smile tightened, but she didn't break. He must have forgotten. He's been stressed. I didn't know her well, but I'd seen enough to recognize when someone's patience thins beneath a polished exterior. I'll check with him first, I said quietly. The smile vanished. In an instant, her tone hardened. There's nothing to check. It's a standard process. I still want to check. For a moment, something cold flickered in her eyes. Then she snatched the paper back and walked off without another word. 2 hours later, Edwin called me into his office. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually neat stack of documents scattered across the desk. You said no to Calla, he said, rubbing his temples. My heart stopped. I'm sorry. I thought. No, he said, looking up. Don't apologize. You were right. She had no business asking you to approve anything. I don't understand, I whispered. He gestured to the file cabinet on the left. Open the third drawer. Inside were folders, color-coded, labeled, meticulous. He handed me 3 of them. Claremont Solutions, he said. These accounts don't add up. Someone's been moving money around, and I needed someone with fresh eyes to see it before I confronted the board. Why me? His answer was quiet, almost painful. Because everyone else is too tangled in this place. Too loyal to the wrong people. I felt the weight of the folders before I even opened them. And the signatures? I asked, my throat tightening. He hesitated. Tessa, what I'm about to do puts you in a complicated position. But I trust you. He pulled out 3 documents, each appointing me as secondary signatory on different projects. If anything happens to me, you'll be able to access these accounts. If anything happens to you? I repeated, panic rising. He just sighed. This company isn't run the way the world thinks it is. Those were the last words he said before he vanished the next day. I blink back into the conference room as if surfacing from underwater. The auditors are holding their breath. Even Ryland's posture has shifted, not relaxed but rattled. That's the context, I say. Edwin was investigating something internally. He put safeguards in place. I was one of them. The audit lead clears his throat. We'll need documentation to verify this. I brought it, I say, lifting my bag. My voice doesn't tremble this time. I pull out a small folder I've kept hidden for months, the handwritten notes Edwin gave me, the flagged receipts, the suspicious vendor logs, the timeline he had me draft. The room feels stunned, almost reverent, as I push the folder across the table. These documents haven't been altered, the auditor asks. I haven't touched them since he gave them to me. Ryland leans forward, scanning the first page. His jaw tightens. This is serious. Serious enough that Edwin wanted to protect the accounts, I say. And serious enough that someone tried to get me to sign off on something I shouldn't have. The auditor turns to Ryland. We'll need to investigate this fully. For the first time since I entered the company, the room is silent because of something I said. As they review the documents, I sit back, letting the storm unfold. Every few minutes I see the same pattern. A page turns, a face falls, a whisper starts. I know what they're realizing. That the intern they all dismissed was holding pieces of a truth they weren't smart, or brave, enough to find. But the strangest part? I'm not angry in this moment. I expected rage, satisfaction, something that tasted like victory. Instead, I feel calm. Steady. Clear. It's not vindication yet. But it's the start of it. And they know it too. After nearly 30 minutes of silence, the audit lead closes the folder. Ms. Hale, thank you. This information will be critical. I nod, waiting. Then he says the sentence that changes everything. We will need you to stay on site for the remainder of the investigation. You may be the only person with a complete picture of what Mr. Holden was uncovering. Ryland's head snaps toward him. She's an intern. I look him dead in the eyes. Not today. He opens his mouth, but the audit lead interrupts. She's the only signatory Edwin trusted. For a moment, Ryland looks at me like he's seeing a stranger. Not the intern. Not the girl he once asked to pick up 6 boxes of printer paper. No. He sees the person holding the truth that could ruin him. It's only then I realize something chilling. He isn't surprised. He's afraid. And fear only comes from guilt. Later, as they escort me out of the conference room to a separate office for questioning, I see Calla at her desk. Her posture stiffens when she sees me with the auditors. Her gaze follows me with a kind of tight panic, the kind people wear when they know the past is catching them. She stands abruptly. Tessa. A word. Not now, one auditor says. Calla forces a polite smile, but her voice drops to a whisper only I can hear. You need to be careful about the story you tell. You don't know who you're dealing with. I stop walking. I look directly into her eyes. And for the first time, she flinches. I know enough, I say. And I'm not the one who should be scared right now. Her expression fractures. As the auditors guide me away, it hits me, not as pride, not as power, but as truth. I am no longer invisible. And they have no idea what I've kept. What I've seen. What I'm capable of revealing. They underestimated me because of the salary printed on my badge, because my shoes were worn, because my lunches came from discount shelves. But today, all of that ends. Today, I'm the one holding the flashlight in a room full of people afraid of being seen. And I'm not putting it down. The small office they place me in feels like it was once a storage room. No windows, a single flickering light, a metal desk pushed against the wall. The air smells faintly of dust and old files, but somehow it feels safer than the open floor outside, where eyes would track me and whispers would spread like wildfire. The auditors step out to retrieve more documents, leaving me alone with my thoughts. For the first time all day, silence settles around me, not peaceful silence, but the heavy kind, the kind that makes every heartbeat feel twice as loud. I rest my hands on the cool metal desk, my fingers trembling before they steady themselves. I've felt fear before. Embarrassment. Humiliation. Dismissal. But this is different. This is the moment in a storm when the wind stops just long enough for you to realize the lightning is coming for someone else, not you. I hear faint footsteps in the hall, sharp heels, clicking fast, purposeful. I don't even need to see the face to know who they belong to. The door swings open without a knock. Calla slips inside and shuts it behind her. "Tessa," she says, breathless, like she ran here. "We need to talk." I stand. The auditors asked not to be interrupted. "This isn't about them," she snaps quietly. Her voice is soft, but edged with desperation. She steps closer. "It's about you." A small laugh escapes me, unplanned, sharp. "About me? Really? Suddenly I matter." Her jaw tightens. "Don't be dramatic." "I'm not," I say. "I'm just remembering how you used to act like I didn't exist." She exhales, annoyed. "Look, whatever Edwin told you, you need to understand something. He was under pressure. He was making mistakes. And trusting you, and in turn, was one of them." I feel a slow burn form behind my ribs. Not rage, something quieter, more precise. He trusted me because I wasn't part of whatever this is. She darts a glance at the door. "Then don't make yourself part of it now." "What exactly is it?" She doesn't answer. She doesn't have to. Her silence is the truth I've been circling since morning. I lean forward, lowering my voice. "You were the one who asked me to sign the vendor form." "Why?" "You're misunderstanding." "Why?" She swallows, the muscles in her throat tightening. "It was routine. It was a flagged vendor." A flicker of panic flashes across her face before she steadies it into something cold. "You're playing a game you're not equipped for." "I'm not the one who's scared," I say softly. That lands. Her expression cracks. Before she can answer, the auditors return. Calla steps back quickly, smoothing her blouse, composure shattering back into place like a snapped mask. She exits without looking at me, but the tightness in her shoulders tells me she knows something is slipping out of her control. And I know this. Part of her wants me to stay quiet. The other part wants me gone. Both are impossible now. The lead auditor, a woman named Ray, sets a thick file on the desk. "Tessa, we need your help walking through these discrepancies." I nod, sitting again, pushing the door conversation to the back of my mind but not forgetting a single word. Ray's voice is calm but clipped, the kind used when someone is navigating a minefield with caution. "These are internal transfers involving the Claremont accounts," she says. "Some look legitimate. Some don't. What we need to know is which ones Edwin specifically asked you to track." I take a breath and flip open the file. For a moment, the papers blur, rows of dates, codes, signatures, amounts. It feels overwhelming, but then my brain slips into the rhythm Edwin taught me. Look for what repeats. Look for what doesn't fit. Look for who benefits. "This one," I say, pointing to a transfer. "He had me highlight anything above this threshold. And this. Suspicious vendor. Wrong approval process. And this. Redirected funds. Should have gone to Rutherford Grant Project, not Claremont." He told me someone was funneling money, but he didn't know who. The auditors listen, scribble notes, exchange looks. Then Ray asks a question that freezes the room. "Did Edwin ever mention the CFO?" I feel my throat tighten. "He told me not to trust anyone above him," I say. "But he didn't name names." Beside Ray, another auditor murmurs, "Then why was Keene pressuring us to close the accounts inquiry last month?" My heart punches against my ribs. "He tried to close it?" I ask. They exchange another look. "He tried hard," Ray says. "He insisted the discrepancies were minor and that reopening the investigation would destabilize internal operations." I blink. "Destabilize who?" Ray pauses. "We assumed he meant the board. But now, we're not sure." For a moment, no one speaks. The air feels thicker than before. Heavier. "He didn't want this looked at," Ray continues. "And now that you're involved? He doesn't want you looked at either." My stomach sinks. The pieces form a shape I don't want to see but can no longer ignore. Edwin trusted me. Someone else feared what I'd uncover. And that someone sits in the executive wing. Suddenly a soft vibration buzzes in my pocket. My phone. A message. From a number I don't recognize. I slide it out discreetly and glance down. Delete what you have. My chest tightens. Another message pops up immediately after. You don't know what you're doing. I stare at the screen, my fingers cold. No name. No signature. No hint. But this isn't a warning. This is a threat. I lock the phone and slip it back into my pocket before the auditors notice, but my mind is racing. Who knows I brought documents? Who knows what Edwin gave me? Who knows I'm the last person he confided in? Calla? Rylan? Someone else entirely? The fear comes fast, but it's not the same fear I used to feel, the small fear that shrinks you. This fear sharpens. This fear focuses. This fear turns into something that feels like steel sinking into my spine. We spend the next hour reviewing transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars drifting into places they didn't belong, disguised with codes that should have been caught months ago. Ray sits back finally, rubbing her forehead. Whoever did this wasn't sloppy. They knew the system. And they knew how to hide it, another auditor adds. My voice comes out quieter than I expect, but firmer than I feel. They also knew no one would question them. When Ray meets my eyes, there's something there. Respect? Recognition? You've been careful, she says. Most interns wouldn't have kept this. Many wouldn't have understood it. I didn't understand everything, I say. But I understood it was wrong. She nods slowly, then folds her hands. Tessa, we will need to escalate this beyond our team. To who? To the External Audit Division. Possibly to the authorities. My pulse jumps. Is it that serious? Yes. Ray's tone is matter-of-fact, not dramatic. This isn't a paperwork mistake. This is fraud. The word lands like a weight on my chest. Fraud. The company I fetched coffees for, stayed late for, worked weekends for, the place where people saw me as nothing, was rotting from the inside. And somehow, I was the only one holding the map. When Ray stands to leave, she puts a hand on my shoulder, not gentle, not firm, just steady. Tessa, no matter what happens next, stay close to us. Don't talk to anyone else without one of us present. Meaning, don't trust anyone here. Don't be alone with anyone. Don't let yourself be cornered. I nod. She steps out. The door closes. The silence returns. But it's not heavy anymore. Not suffocating. It feels like the quiet before a truth rises to the surface. A truth with teeth. My phone buzzes again. A new message. Stop now. Final warning. Something in me hardens completely. I've been underestimated my whole life. Dismissed because of clothes, titles, paychecks. But the moment you try to silence me, that's when I stop being quiet. That's when I become dangerous. Whoever sent this thinks fear keeps me small. But fear isn't my weakness. It's my turning point. And whoever they are, they just made the mistake of thinking a broken turn has something left to lose. I don't. But they do. They just don't know it yet. I sit alone in the small office, the faint hum of the fluorescent light above like a metronome counting down time I can't waste. My hands hover over the folders Edwin left me, feeling the crisp edges, the weight of months of secrets and trust, the responsibility they carry. Every document, every signature, every flagged transaction tells a story the company doesn't want uncovered. And yet, for the first time, I don't feel small. I feel focused. Like someone handed me a sword and told me to carve through walls I'd spent years walking around. The messages keep coming. Threats. Anonymous, sharp, and certain. Delete what you have. You don't know what you're doing. Stop now. Final warning. Each one slides into my phone like a serpent, trying to make me shrink back into the shadows I've lived in my whole life. But fear doesn't touch me anymore. Not really. I feel the steel inside me ignite, the calm fire that's been smoldering since my first week at Halden and Bright, since Edwin trusted me when no one else did. I know they're watching. I know someone within the company, someone high up, is terrified I'll reveal what Edwin left in my hands. But what they don't understand is that I'm no longer the intern who hesitated. I'm the one who holds the truth, and they are the ones on the defensive now. I take a deep breath, lean back in the metal chair, and open the first folder. The numbers, the codes, the transfers, it all lines up, a pattern that's been hiding in plain sight. Funds rerouted, vendor approvals bypassed, inflated invoices paid without question. Kala. Rylan. The CFO. Every name I see in these files begins to form a map of greed, laziness, and quiet corruption. It's precise. It's deliberate. And it's dangerous. Hours pass in silence. I cross-reference, highlight, take notes. I mark the suspicious transfers for the auditors. I catalog every attempt someone made to hide the truth, every veiled threat, every subtle misdirection. I realize now that Edwin didn't just trust me because he was kind, he trusted me because he saw what I could do when pushed to the edge. And now, pushed to the edge, I am unstoppable. Later, the auditors return. Ray's expression is grim but impressed. Tessa, we've gone over everything. The level of mismanagement, it's astonishing. And you've documented it all meticulously. Her words are soft, but they strike with the weight of authority. This could lead to arrests. Or at least, major upheaval in the executive team. I nod slowly, my mind calculating the next steps. Then we need to protect the documents and ensure nothing is removed or destroyed, I say. And whoever is behind the threats needs to know that trying to intimidate me will backfire. Ray glances at me, a spark of surprise in her eyes. You're calm, considering. I've spent years being invisible, I interrupt, my voice steady. Being underestimated. Being ignored. I've had time to prepare for this moment. Now it's my turn to control what happens. She doesn't argue. Instead, she motions for me to follow her. As we walk down the sterile hallway, I see Kala from the corner of my eye, pretending to be busy at her desk. She glances up. Our eyes meet briefly, and I notice her composure falter ever so slightly. A warning. Or maybe recognition. Either way, it tells me she knows this is no longer her game. At one point, Kala slips into the room under the pretense of assisting, but her eyes betray her. She tries to speak, to negotiate, to regain control. I lean forward, fingers brushing the folders. Your attempts to manipulate this, I say softly but sharply, won't work. I've documented everything. Every move, every threat, every attempt to bypass proper procedure. And I'll make sure it's all accounted for. She pales, and for the first time, I see the mask of confidence slip completely. Behind it is the raw fear she tried to hide. And I savor that small, precise victory. Not cruelty, not revenge in the petty sense, but the sweet, cinematic truth of power restored. Hours later, the auditors leave, the executives reeling. I remain behind, alone with the folders, the room quiet save for my own heartbeat. I close the files gently, almost reverently, knowing that this isn't the end. There will be consequences, legal, professional, emotional, but the foundation is laid. The truth is in my hands. I glance at my phone. No new messages. The silence is comforting, but I know it won't last. Whoever sent those threats will strike again. They always do. But for now, I've taken the first step, and the first step is always the hardest. And as I pack the folders carefully into my bag, I realize the final truth of this moment. I am no longer the intern who walked into Holden and bright, timid, and invisible. I am the one who knows, the one who sees, the one who holds the power to turn the tides. And the people who underestimated me? They will learn that every quiet person has a storm inside them, waiting for the moment it can rise. I step out of the office, feeling the weight of every glance and whisper as people notice the shift. I am not just seen. I am counted. I am feared. And this is only the beginning. The thrill of control is intoxicating. The taste of justice is sharp. And for the first time, I let myself imagine the endgame, not only surviving this chaos but rising above it, untouchable, unshakable, and finally in my rightful place. The storm has arrived and I am standing in the eye. The morning after the auditors left feels surreal, almost like the world outside has gone on pretending while inside, everything has shifted. Walking through the office, I notice the subtle changes immediately. People who used to ignore me now glance my way, hesitant, calculating. The whispers are quieter, cautious, and for once, I feel the calm satisfaction of being in control. I am Tessa Hale, the intern turned silent sentinel, the keeper of truths no one dared confront. But control, I quickly realize, is fragile. The higher you rise, the more precarious the footing becomes, and the boardrooms of Holden and Bright are no place for hesitation. Rylan Keene is the first to approach me that morning. His expression is a blend of forced composure and barely restrained panic. "Tessa," he begins, voice low, cautious, "we need to discuss your role moving forward. Clearly you've been integral." He stops, choosing words carefully as if each one might betray him. I smile faintly, soft but cutting. "Integral, yes. But not for long if the right people aren't held accountable." His jaw tightens. He's thinking of ways to spin this, to preserve himself, to rewrite the narrative he ignored for months. He hasn't realized yet that the narrative is no longer his to write. As he stammers through a series of cautious questions, I respond with precision. Each word measured, each fact deliberate. I watch as his posture stiffens, his carefully built armor of authority cracking. And behind his eyes, I see it, the fear of someone finally realizing the intern he ignored is the one wielding truth as a weapon. By mid-morning, the whispers have spread across the office. Calla's presence is conspicuous now. She hovers near desks, ostensibly busy, but every glance in my direction betrays her unease. She knows the game has changed, and the mask of confidence she wore for months has slipped entirely. I let it simmer. Let her stew in her panic. It's poetic justice in its quietest, most precise form. Then comes the email. Not from HR, not from the auditors, but from an external counsel retained by Holden and Bright's board, a legal team tasked with investigating the internal discrepancies. The subject line is simple: Tessa Hale, statement request. I open it. The language is formal, sharp, unmistakably serious. They want a detailed account of all transactions, all flagged vendors, and the chain of approvals. Essentially, they want the truth, unfiltered, and they want it from the one person who knows it intimately. I feel a thrill, sharp and electric, run through me. This is exactly what I've been preparing for. I begin drafting my account immediately, careful to provide facts without embellishment, precision without hesitation. Every document Edwin left me, every note, every flagged transfer is catalogued, time-stamped, and corroborated. I am no longer invisible. I am essential. And they cannot ignore me. Hours pass as I work, but the calm is broken by a familiar presence. Calla steps into my office, her composure gone entirely. She closes the door behind her with a snap. "Tessa, this is your last warning," she says, her voice low, trembling despite her attempt at control. "I know you have everything. I know what Edwin left you. And I know you're going to ruin people if you continue." I lean back in my chair, meeting her gaze evenly. "Calla, you should have thought about that months ago, when you tried to manipulate me into signing things I didn't understand. You made your choices. I'm simply following through on mine." Her face flushes. "You don't understand. You think you're in control, but this isn't a game. You could destroy yourself. You could destroy everything." I tilt my head slightly, a faint smile touching my lips. I've spent years destroying myself. I've spent years being invisible, being humiliated, being ignored. And now, for the first time, I'm being seen. And that scares you. She falters. Her entire posture collapses into something almost human, stripped of the polished veneer she used to hide behind. You think this is revenge." "I think it's justice," I correct her, softly but firmly. "Revenge implies malice. Justice implies balance. You should have known the difference a long time ago." By late afternoon, the board convenes an emergency meeting. The room is tense, suffused with the energy of panic and calculation. I am present, seated at the head of the table in a place I earned not through entitlement but through knowledge, integrity, and unwavering preparation. Rylan and Calla sit opposite me, their carefully curated composure barely holding. Every executive's gaze is drawn to me, to the folders at my side, to the quiet confidence radiating from the girl they once dismissed. I begin my account methodically, narrating events exactly as they occurred, guiding the board through the maze of discrepancies, approvals, and bypassed protocols. The room goes silent, punctuated only by the scratching of pens and the occasional intake of breath. People lean forward, realizing for the first time the depth of the corruption they ignored, or perpetuated. Minutes stretch into an eternity. I watch faces change color, gestures become defensive, voices falter. The auditor's report corroborates every detail I provide. The room is no longer a boardroom, it is a stage on which truth performs its quiet, devastating ballet. And I am the conductor. Rylan tries to interrupt. I raise a hand. No, I say softly, with a calm that carries an edge like a blade. Let me finish. You will have your chance to respond when you are asked. Right now, you will listen. You will understand. And you will remember who brought clarity to this chaos. Kala's eyes flicker with panic. Every attempt she made to manipulate, intimidate, or conceal is laid bare before the board. Her face tightens. I feel no satisfaction, no gloating. Only clarity. She made her choices, I am simply revealing them. The board convenes for deliberation, leaving me alone with the auditors to discuss next steps. Ray leans toward me, her voice a quiet anchor. You've handled this impeccably, Tessa. Every move, every word, controlled, precise. You've turned what could have been a disaster into a moment of undeniable authority. I nod, feeling the weight of months of invisibility lift slightly from my shoulders. It's only the beginning, I say. People forget that the smallest voice can become the loudest when it carries the truth. By evening, the decision is announced. The CFO and several implicated executives are suspended pending further investigation. Kala is removed from all financial oversight. The board acknowledges my role, granting me temporary oversight of the accounts Edwin entrusted to me until a permanent solution is determined. I am no longer the intern. I am the authority. I am the one the company must answer to. As I walk through the office one last time that day, I feel the shift in energy with every step. People avoid my gaze, some with shame, others with fear. I remember every whispered insult, every dismissive glance, every small humiliation I endured here. And I smile quietly. Not because I am cruel, but because the arc of injustice has bent, finally, toward me. Later that night, in the quiet of my apartment, I review the documents once more. Each highlighted discrepancy, each note, each carefully documented step tells the story of power shifted, of control reclaimed, of truth revealed. I think of Edwin, of his quiet faith in me, and I understand fully what he saw. He knew that one day the invisible person, the one no one noticed, would be the one holding the light in the darkness. And as I set the folders aside, I allow myself a moment to breathe. Not relief. Not triumph. Just quiet reflection. I endured years of dismissal, scorn, and invisibility. But now, I am visible. I am trusted. I am respected. I am Tessa Hale, and I will never again be underestimated. The storm has passed, but I remain standing in its wake. And for the first time, I see the future not as someone small and overlooked, but as someone who holds the power to shape outcomes, to demand respect, to enforce justice quietly but irrevocably. And in that quiet, I smile. The morning sunlight filters through my apartment windows, soft and unassuming, as if nothing monumental has happened. But everything has changed. The world outside continues its routine, coffee shops, cars honking, neighbors walking dogs, but inside, I carry a quiet triumph, the calm after a storm that no one saw coming until it hit. Holden and Bright is still the same company on paper, but the currents beneath the surface have shifted irreversibly. The executives who once dismissed me, who laughed at my meager salary and whispered about my broken turn status, are now trapped in a web of consequences they can't avoid. I am no longer invisible. I am the one holding the map. The one wielding the light in a room full of people who feared it. I pour coffee into a chipped mug, the steam curling into the air like a signal of patience earned, of vigilance maintained. My phone buzzes softly, an unknown number. I glance at it. No threats. No warnings. Just a single message: we've received the documents. Thank you. My lips twitch in a faint, private smile. That's it. That's all it takes. Truth doesn't need dramatics. Truth doesn't need spectacle. Truth just needs to be undeniable, precise, and relentless. And I am relentless. I think back to Edwin. I see his tired eyes, the way he handed me the folders with quiet faith, the subtle weight of expectation that no one else would understand. He trusted me because he saw through the chaos, through the noise, to the person who could handle truth without fear, without flinching. I feel a pang of longing, both sorrow for his absence and gratitude for his trust. In a strange cinematic way, it feels like he's here with me now, nodding in quiet approval. The news hits the office like a controlled avalanche. The CFO is suspended, Rylan Keene faces inquiries, and Kala's influence is stripped entirely. The board holds an emergency session, and I am present not as an observer, but as the one whose voice matters, whose documentation cannot be dismissed, whose integrity cannot be questioned. People glance at me differently now, some with awe, some with fear, some with a cautious respect that borders on reverence. For years, I endured the humiliation of being ignored, underestimated, overlooked. But that history is no longer a liability, it is the foundation of my strength. I walk the halls of Holden and Bright with a deliberate calm. Every whisper, every sidelong glance, every tentative step taken by those who underestimated me serves as a reminder that the tide has shifted. I catch Ryland's eye from across the room, once a man who wielded authority effortlessly, now reduced to cautious scrutiny. I nod slightly, acknowledging his presence, and he stiffens. The balance of power has changed. He knows it, even if he doesn't want to admit it. Kala, meanwhile, avoids me completely. Her once imposing confidence has been stripped to a veneer of civility that barely holds. I see her in passing, gripping a file, eyes darting, calculating whether to confront me or hide. I allow her the space to choose, knowing fully that whatever she decides, her choices are now constrained by the truth I hold. The world she tried to manipulate is now operating on a different axis, one I control quietly but irreversibly. By late afternoon, I sit in my office, now my domain, with the folders neatly stacked beside me. Each page, each note, each highlighted discrepancy represents months of careful observation, preparation, and quiet endurance. I trace the edges of the papers with my fingertips, remembering every insult, every overlooked effort, every small humiliation I suffered. And I allow myself a private, precise satisfaction. Not vengeance. Not cruelty. But justice. Poetic, measured, quiet justice. I think of the interns who will come after me, the young professionals overlooked and underestimated every day. I imagine their eyes widening as they realize someone like them, someone small, overlooked, invisible, can hold sway, can expose the truth, can shift power quietly but completely. And I smile again softly, with the knowledge that I am part of a chain, a line of quiet strength that doesn't need noise to resonate. Evening falls. I step onto my balcony, the city lights flickering like distant stars. The air is crisp, carrying the faint hum of life below. I breathe in slowly, letting the tension, the months of preparation, the hours of silent endurance settle into calm. I am no longer the girl who waited for recognition, who feared confrontation, who hid behind anonymity. I am Tessa Hale, and I am the one who holds the truth. The phone buzzes again. Another unknown number. I glance at it, but I don't open it. The threats, the warnings, they no longer reach me. I am beyond fear. I am beyond dismissal. I am the one standing quietly at the center, observing, calculating, guiding the outcome without spectacle, without malice, without need for applause. I think of Edwin one last time, imagining his quiet nod of approval, the subtle pride in his eyes. He trusted me when no one else would. And now, through patience, endurance, and meticulous care, I've honored that trust. I've not only survived, I've risen. The city stretches below me, a web of lights and movement, oblivious to the quiet shifts of power happening inside the walls of Holden and Bright. And I am part of that web now, not hidden, not dismissed, but integral. The files in my office, the careful documentation, the truth I hold, they are my quiet legacy. And the people who tried to undermine, belittle, and threaten me will remember the day the broken turn became indispensable, untouchable, and impossible to ignore. I close my eyes for a moment, savoring the stillness. The storm has passed, the wave has crested, and I stand calm and unwavering in its aftermath. I have endured invisibility, humiliation, threats, and dismissal. I have survived scorn, manipulation, and subtle attempts at intimidation. And I have emerged, not angry, not vindictive, but elevated, measured, and wholly aware of my own power. The truth is now in my hands, the balance restored, and the company knows it. Holden and Bright will never again underestimate Tessa Hale. And for the first time in my life, I feel the full, quiet glow of victory. Not the kind that shouts. Not the kind that glares. But the kind that radiates from someone who endured, who waited, who calculated, who quietly but completely reclaimed their rightful place. I turn back inside, the folders neatly stacked, my office a sanctuary of truth. Outside, the city hums on, unaware. But inside, I am a storm contained, powerful, deliberate, unstoppable. The broken turn is gone. The woman who remains is steady, prepared, and utterly unshakable. And that is enough. The morning sunlight filters through my apartment windows, soft and unassuming, as if nothing monumental has happened. But everything has changed. The world outside continues its routine: coffee shops, cars honking, neighbors walking dogs, but inside, I carry a quiet triumph, the calm after a storm that no one saw coming until it hit. Holden and Bright is still the same company on paper, but the currents beneath the surface have shifted irreversibly. The executives who once dismissed me, who laughed at my meager salary and whispered about my broken turn status, are now trapped in a web of consequences they can't avoid. I am no longer invisible. I am the one holding the map. The one wielding the light in a room full of people who feared it. I pour coffee into a chipped mug, the steam curling into the air like a signal of patience earned, of vigilance maintained. My phone buzzes softly, an unknown number. I glance at it. No threats. No warnings. Just a single message: we've received the documents. Thank you. My lips twitch in a faint, private smile. That's it. That's all it takes. Truth doesn't need dramatics. Truth doesn't need spectacle. Truth just needs to be undeniable, precise, and relentless. And I am relentless. I think back to Edwin. I see his tired eyes, the way he handed me the folders with quiet faith, the subtle weight of expectation that no one else would understand. He trusted me because he saw through the chaos, through the noise, to the person who could handle truth without fear, without flinching. I feel a pang of longing, both sorrow for his absence and gratitude for his trust. In a strange cinematic way, it feels like he's here with me now, nodding in quiet approval. The news hits the office like a controlled avalanche. The CFO is suspended, Rylan Keene faces inquiries, and Kala's influence is stripped entirely. The board holds an emergency session, and I am present not as an observer, but as the one whose voice matters, whose documentation cannot be dismissed, whose integrity cannot be questioned. People glance at me differently now, some with awe, some with fear, some with a cautious respect that borders on reverence. For years, I endured the humiliation of being ignored, underestimated, overlooked. But that history is no longer a liability, it is the foundation of my strength. I walk the halls of Holden and Bright with a deliberate calm. Every whisper, every sidelong glance, every tentative step taken by those who underestimated me serves as a reminder that the tide has shifted. I catch Ryland's eye from across the room, once a man who wielded authority effortlessly, now reduced to cautious scrutiny. I nod slightly, acknowledging his presence, and he stiffens. The balance of power has changed. He knows it, even if he doesn't want to admit it. Kala, meanwhile, avoids me completely. Her once imposing confidence has been stripped to a veneer of civility that barely holds. I see her in passing, gripping a file, eyes darting, calculating whether to confront me or hide. I allow her the space to choose, knowing fully that whatever she decides, her choices are now constrained by the truth I hold. The world she tried to manipulate is now operating on a different axis, one I control quietly but irreversibly. By late afternoon, I sit in my office, now my domain, with the folders neatly stacked beside me. Each page, each note, each highlighted discrepancy represents months of careful observation, preparation, and quiet endurance. I trace the edges of the papers with my fingertips, remembering every insult, every overlooked effort, every small humiliation I suffered. And I allow myself a private, precise satisfaction. Not vengeance. Not cruelty. But justice. Poetic, measured, quiet justice. I think of the interns who will come after me, the young professionals overlooked and underestimated every day. I imagine their eyes widening as they realize someone like them, someone small, overlooked and visible, can hold sway, can expose the truth, can shift power quietly but completely. And I smile again softly, with the knowledge that I am part of a chain, a line of quiet strength that doesn't need noise to resonate. Evening falls. I step onto my balcony, the city lights flickering like distant stars. The air is crisp, carrying the faint hum of life below. I breathe in slowly, letting the tension, the months of preparation, the hours of silent endurance settle into calm. I am no longer the girl who waited for recognition, who feared confrontation, who hid behind anonymity. I am Tessa Hale, and I am the one who holds the truth. The phone buzzes again. Another unknown number. I glance at it, but I don't open it. The threats, the warnings, they no longer reach me. I am beyond fear. I am beyond dismissal. I am the one standing quietly at the center, observing, calculating, guiding the outcome without spectacle, without malice, without need for applause. I think of Edwin one last time, imagining his quiet nod of approval, the subtle pride in his eyes. He trusted me when no one else would. And now, through patience, endurance, and meticulous care, I've honored that trust. I've not only survived, I've risen. The city stretches below me, a web of lights and movement, oblivious to the quiet shifts of power happening inside the walls of Holden and Bright. And I am part of that web now, not hidden, not dismissed, but integral. The files in my office, the careful documentation, the truth I hold, they are my quiet legacy. And the people who tried to undermine, belittle, and threaten me will remember the day the broken turn became indispensable, untouchable, and impossible to ignore. I close my eyes for a moment, savoring the stillness. The storm has passed, the wave has crested, and I stand calm and unwavering in its aftermath. I have endured invisibility, humiliation, threats, and dismissal. I have survived scorn, manipulation, and subtle attempts at intimidation. And I have emerged, not angry, not vindictive, but elevated, measured, and wholly aware of my own power. The truth is now in my hands, the balance restored, and the company knows it. Holden and Bright will never again underestimate Tessa Hale. And for the first time in my life, I feel the full, quiet glow of victory. Not the kind that shouts. Not the kind that glares. But the kind that radiates from someone who endured, who waited, who calculated, who quietly but completely reclaimed their rightful place. I turn back inside, the folders neatly stacked, my office a sanctuary of truth. Outside, the city hums on, unaware. But inside, I am a storm contained, powerful, deliberate, unstoppable. The broken turn is gone. The woman who remains is steady, prepared, and utterly unshakable. And that is enough.